host of the Housing for All webinar series, which is produced by the Dallas Housing Coalition. And I'm so happy to be back after our 3-week hiatus for another engaging conversation, as all of our webinar series have been so far. In addition to being your host, I also serve as Senior Manager of Community Development at Charles Schwab Bank. And I am also a board member of the Dallas Housing Coalition. And thank you again for joining us this morning after our break. On each episode of the Housing for All webinar series, we discuss whether Dallas is big and if it is truly big enough for everyone. By having impactful conversations with members of the Dallas Housing Coalition and other community leaders who are Dallas's strongest advocates for keeping the city affordable. Joining us this morning is Zenetta Drew. Zenetta is the executive director of the Dallas Black Dance Theater. Founded in 1976, Dallas Black Dance Theater is the oldest continuously operating professional dance company in Dallas. In her over 37 years as executive director, Zenetta has been successful in scaling the theater to be able to perform for luminaries such as Her Majesty, the Queen, and President Nelson Mandela. Zenetta has extensive list of certifications and accomplishments, including but not limited to being the first Black female to receive a BBA, Bachelor's of Arts in Accounting, from the Texas A&M University at the Commerce campus, and graduating from Harvard Business School's National Art Strategies Executive Program, and also graduating from the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business National Arts Management Strategies Executive Program. Thank you so much for joining us today, Zenetta.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to share with you today.
Well, fantastic. I'm so happy to get into this conversation with you. Unfortunately, this is only a 30-minute episode, because honestly, one of my first questions would have been about Her Majesty the Queen. So we may have to have a follow-up conversation just on that alone.
Yes, later.
But just kind of get us started, for those of us who are joining us today that aren't as familiar with the work of the Dallas the Dallas Black Dance Theater. Can you just talk a little bit about the organization?
Yes, Dallas Black Dance Theater is a 48-year-old contemporary modern dance company that has been the leading dance provider of professional dance in Dallas for the last 30 years. Dallas is the only major city in the United States where a minority dance company provides its leading dance services. At this time, we are the 4th largest Black dance company in the nation, 7th largest contemporary modern dance company in the nation, and we have dual designation, and we are the 36th largest classical ballet company in the nation, larger than the Los Angeles Ballet and the Sacramento Ballet. So if that puts you in perspective of where we sit nationally. We are also a provider of dance education and training for ages 2 through senior citizens, and we have an academy that serves over 500 students here in our building, and another 2,000 to 3,000 in outreach programs, as well as 5 performing companies that perform locally, nationally, and I provided performances at 3 Olympics as international ambassadors. That's the short
Wow.
version.
Wow. I am just so taken aback that to know that the theater is here and it's a crown jewel really in the wider community of arts networks around the country is like truly amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And kind of going a little bit deeper into the theater, in addition to the variety of impactful performances that your organization does year in and year out, what sorts of educational programming does the Dallas Black Dance Theater provide? And what have you noticed about your programming as you've been bringing it to various parts of Dallas?
So first of all, we provide about 80 performances, concert performances here in Dallas, and over 3,000 educational outreach programs, including classes. And what we do is we make sure that the educational content is appropriate for the venues. We perform in libraries, senior centers, churches, corporate venues, but also we do a lot in the schools. We have full-time teachers who go into the schools and teach age-appropriate skills and development surrounding by tenets of math, geography, science, languages, so that the teachers are able to have a corollary um, uh, training path to tie the dance to what their academic teaching is. And in doing so, with COVID, we moved from not only in person to having virtual capabilities, of which this past year, we are in our fourth year providing virtual educational programming for Dallas ISD, of which it is offered to all 150,000 students. And this past year, 53,366 students were signed up by their teachers for our virtual educational content. We've now expanded to other uh, suburban cities, Fort Worth, Carrollton, Lancaster, DeSoto. And so what we're finding is that we're expanding our sources of being able to share our product, but we're also providing art to individuals who would not have the income to travel, come to the concert halls, and know about us. So we're increasing the participation of citizens by using the streaming to add additional access to our education. We do classes as well.
That's amazing. It's so wonderful to hear of the breadth and reach of your programs, and especially just how thoughtfully and expansively you are in the Dallas communities. I'm just curious, what have you noticed about over your 37 years, how Dallas, the various parts of Dallas have changed, as you've been doing the community outreach and community education
So
program?
yeah, so let me back up and preface why Dallas Dance Center would want to support this effort. And that is really because we're located in the Dallas Arts District at the eastern end. And for those who are not aware, the Dallas Arts District was the origins of the African American community in this city. And as such, there were homes here in the 50s and 60s and 30s and 40s. And from that, as the city and the core of the city grew, those individuals were displaced. And so we have seen how housing has shifted individuals to other communities. The cost of housing increased, and many were not able to have and sustain the quality of life that they had when they were in this original community. I also am a homeowner for 40 years. My home value has increased 10 times, yet the minimum wage has not increased 10 times. And so I see the differential in capacity for young families to be able to get adequate housing, affordable housing. And I think even more so when we look at attracting artists, not just individual, not just dancers, but we also have a full administrative staff, technical staff, choreographers, teachers, people who come from all around the world to work here, live here. Retention is based on the quality of affordable housing. And so as we build an inclusive workforce, we add to the arts community. There are limitations because within the arts salary range, it may not be as competitive as, and it is not as competitive as corporate jobs. And yet we know many corporate relocations are limited because of housing. And so we're even more disparate. There's a larger disparity for artists simply because the income differential for not just Black artists, but all artists who are working for a living.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And that really leads to my next question, which you really started to answer, is that I'm sure people who are joining us today are thinking like, why is the Dallas Black Dance Theater part of the Dallas Housing Coalition? And I think you've just hit on a number of wonderful points that I want to kind of go back to and dig a little deeper in. And it sounds like a lot of the intersection between your organization and housing starts back to just uh, you know 50 or so years ago, as like communities where Black residents lived began to change, and even then displacement began to happen.
So yes, but I also think that as we recruit artists from around the world, we have two professional performing companies, and almost all of our dancers are college degree professionals who move here from around the world. They immediately have to find housing. The impact is that we as a city with and being in the arts district and central core, transportation becomes an issue, and the further out you go in order to find affordable housing, then they're not able to, many times, to have the reliable transportation, and then choices have to be made between food, clothing, medicine, and other types of essentials in order to decide to accept a position that we might offer. And what we find is many times we are looking to bring in artists and individuals, and we're constrained by the fact that they're not able to find affordable housing. And we end up having to make adjustments in our programs and our planning because of the limitations we have in our city on housing.
Yeah. Have you noticed over the years that that has gotten worse as you're recruiting talent to Dallas? Is it becoming more acute, or has it always been an issue throughout the
It's been an
organization's
issue.
career?
It's been an issue throughout, but here's the difference. The escalation of costs and the rise of inflation has far outpaced. And as we look, especially at artists and individuals who are right out of college who move to this city, and you may or may not have transportation and you want to live downtown, it's almost unaffordable. There is limited transportation through our bus systems that will get you from locations and allow you ease of transition. And so at this time, what individuals end up doing is many times having to share space. But some
Mhm.
folks, because they have families, that does not allow them to make the transition and be able to live, work, and enjoy the benefits that we have in our city, simply because the capacity of housing is not available for the lifestyle that they would like to choose.
So it sounds like your ability to attract talent, and really the best talent, that the dance world has, is much definitely impacted by
Yes,
the
yes.
affordability
Yes,
issues in Dallas.
yes, yes, it is.
Um, and what have you been are there things that you've been able to do to support dancers who really want to be here but are faced with the affordability issue?
So early on, we did have some partners who had vacancies in apartment, and they allowed for a partnership of in-kind support to reduce the cost of housing so that the dancers could have quality housing in transition. Over time, as the central business district has escalated in condos, lofts, we have found that those opportunities have reduced significantly. And therefore, where we were able to many times get reduced rents that would fit certainly within the budget and provide quality housing, those opportunities are minimized. And that's just because of demand and how our city is growing. And so we see that effect all over, but we also see it with other organizations that you work with. I uh, go to church in Southern Dallas. You see families that are having to make very serious decisions because housing costs, rents are going up. And, we see that impacts the education of the children who are no longer able to stay in their schools. The jobs that the parents are able to take because of maybe the extended transportation, uh, times that they would have to move to an affordable location outside of Dallas. All of those are impacts that diminish our tax base, diminish the quality of life and the people that we're able to have as resources for not just Dallas Bank Dance Theater, but the entire Dallas workforce.
Absolutely. So it sounds like that your options to help dancers come here and be able to live here comfortably and affordably have really been squeezed by the overall affordability crisis hitting a lot of families here in Dallas as well.
They've been seriously impacted, and that is one of the number one decisions in a dancer choosing to accept an offer to move, relocate from around the nation. Here is, can I afford the housing? And what will I have for transportation in order to ensure that I can get to my work?
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. And from someone who worked in workforce development before coming to Schwab Bank, I can definitely attest to that. Is that there's this phrase called the social determinants of work, What are the factors that either inhibit or allow someone to fully participate in the workforce? And you're hitting on those social determinants of work that it's housing, it's transportation, it's childcare. That if those issues aren't addressed, a lot of times it doesn't matter if the person has like the determination, the education, the connections. If those issues aren't addressed, it's really hard for them to fully participate in the way they would want to.
And I can also add housing that is located close to schools. That's
Mhm.
another issue because many young adults have young families and they're looking
Mhm.
at what it takes to be able to not only have housing that is close to their work, but also close to the schools that they would
Absolutely.
like to choose. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And staying on this thread of dancers and kind of the challenges that they face is if as they're weighing the decision to accept an offer to come and join the Dallas Black Dance Theater. If they are able to come and be part of the theater, I'm kind of wondering after their residencies end, do they stay and kind of embed into the cultural community, or do they transition? Like, um, what is their career path or the trajectory if they are able to if they are able to overcome the affordability issues and actually join the theater?
So one of the things to be understood is that the lifespan of a dancer physically is about 15 years. And
Wow.
so if you're out of college at 22, by 37, 40, the demands on the body don't allow you to necessarily do concert dance. Most of our
Mhm.
dancers have 5 to 7 years. Some have more tenure, but they also audition for other companies around the nation because they want to make sure that they have in their resume of over their lifetime have had choices of where they want to show off their talent. However, many do stay here and they become teachers in the public school system and private schools. Many of them do choreography. Many have started their own companies. But those are unique choices where they have either developed relationships and alternative work support systems that allow them to be able to have the type of housing that they would prefer. What we do is auditions every year with our dancers. They have annual contracts for 11 and a half months on full salary with benefits, but they also have the option to audition other places. And as you know, coming with a very physical art form, dancers do get injured. And so many of them are not able to continue, but they make choices to either relocate to their other cities or stay here. Most of our dancers come with dual degrees. So some go into business, uh, some have accounting degrees, some have had marketing degrees. And so they end up in all aspects of our workforce if they choose to stay here.
That's great. And everybody, Dallas, big conversation in Dallas is the city's ability to attract and retain talent. And I can just imagine, when we talk about affordability and retaining the great talent that you're able to bring to Dallas, like that reaps benefits for the city if they're able to transition to another career path in Dallas and stay. Like the things they'd be able to contribute to like the civic and economic vibrancy is, it's something we have to really take into consideration from affordability standpoint.
Right. And what we always present first is the economic impact of the arts is greater than that of sports for the DFW Metroplex. Okay.
Wow.
And the other thing that you would also find is that not only do you have the economic impact, but many folks don't realize that these individuals are tax-paying citizens who are
Mhm.
buying and contributing to our economy across all aspects. Okay. And so the mindset, oh, they're artists, is not. No, these are working individuals who are major contributors to the community. And if they are providing a positive influence and example across educational parameters, leadership in the community, certainly we want them to be able to stay in our city and continue to contribute their expertise and,
Mhm.
um, and be advocates for the things they've learned. What we find is that many of the people that we bring here love our city. They really love Texas and they love Dallas. But you do have to make the hard choices of what you can afford for the quality of life that you want to have. And that's where housing is the fundamental essential that is required to make that decision.
Absolutely. And kind of staying on that note, you know, as a member of the Dallas Housing Coalition, and thank you for being part of our coalition, how has the Dallas Black Dance Theater contributed towards making Dallas an even more inclusive city as it relates to housing?
Well, I don't know how we say we've contributed to housing because we don't have development opportunities as it relates to brick and mortar.
Mhm.
But what we have done is we have brought artists to live and work here. And we have brought artists from all, and so we're not just dancers, we have choreographers. Recently, we had a young lady who came from Turkey and spent, time here, an individual who came from Korea in May. And so we have artists who are exposed to our city who, because they come and work with us, ultimately, many of them make choices, even after visiting for a month, to relocate here. And so we're not necessarily building houses, but we're building bridges to those who want to choose housing in our city and become part of our community. And so that list goes on from technical artists, costumers, choreographers, musicians, all of those become part of the cadre of people that we bring into this city who get a chance to experience what we have as a quality of life. And it gives an option for them to consider us as a place for permanent residence.
Yeah, I just can't help but thinking about how instrumental the theater is to just contributing to the vibrancy and the civic and arts cultural life of of Dallas. And if a lack of affordability impacts that, then it also impacts the vibrancy and cultural mecca that Dallas is.
Right. And what we found in some of the studies uh, through the arts is that attracting individual artists to Dallas is one of the number one challenges we have, because, and the number one hindrance is lack of affordable housing. And
Mhm.
so, yes, we have a dance company, but also to be a thriving city, as we'd like to compare ourselves to New York and Chicago and Los Angeles, you really do need to have the individual artists who want to relocate here and be part of our community and help build our whole cultural landscape. And the number one factor that we found through research, the collective arts community, is that it has been limited because of housing costs. That's the first choice to make a decision to come and live and work here.
Absolutely. And that really kind of, as we round out our conversation, as you look forward, um, and I think you've basically a big thread of our conversation is really showing the intersection between a vibrant arts community and civic life and affordability. How would you like to see, um, or what do you think is important to keep Dallas affordable, to support the work of the theater and continue its efforts to grow and attract top talent?
I think that wages have to increase, and we have to make a decision as employers to have wage increases that keep up with inflation. Um, it's not a rocket science decision, but it does impact business, but it is part of what the equation. The other part of that is making sure that we maintain a tax base that people who get into housing and own homes can actually manage the taxes that are associated with that. So having a reasonable tax statewide, citywide, school district, all of that makes sense. And then the other thing that I think that is most important is that there needs to be more building of housing, quality housing for low to moderate income families, so
Mhm.
that you have single family, you have multifamily, whatever the needs are. I don't have all the data, but we know that we don't have enough physical units to
Mhm.
accommodate in the locations where people want to live and work, to ensure that we can grow and expand our workforce to meet the needs of all of the employers, not just the arts, but our entire capacities as a city. And what we would end up with is reducing our homelessness because many times folks who are employed can't afford housing and end up homeless or in transition. There is
Mhm.
a lot of risk and shifting and lowering the quality of education. Many teachers and individuals who are trying to help us build our economy end up in this situation because of the, and so we don't even think about that. We want to raise our educational standard, but the individuals who are providing that also are impacted by not having uh, affordable housing and as living costs increase. And then I think the other thing that, and I wrote myself a note here, is that you want to make sure that we are ensuring that the housing itself is not substandard. Many times when we build low income and moderate income housing, it is not built to the standard that we know we should have or that we would want to live in ourselves.
Mhm.
And I say that to developers and anyone who's listening. Yes, there is an upfront cost, but the retention, the quality of life for our city, the growth in our capacities collectively, economically, the investment starts on the front end. And then we do know that there's a demand, and we
Mhm.
certainly should be able to serve it. Dallas can do anything. I've seen it. Dallas Bank Debt Center is an example. When I started this organization, it was a $200,000 organization, and it was in serious debt. And at Bishop College, and it was failing. Okay. And yet now we own the former Moreland YMCA and a half a city block in the Dallas Arts District. And it was seen to be thought to be impossible. But guess what the precedent was and the premise? We needed housing stability for the operations and the sustaining of this organization. So whether it be housing or a small business, having the physical capacity to house the entity is essential to survival.
Absolutely. Um, if not, I so appreciate this conversation because if any of our viewers came in and their first instinct was, how and why does arts have anything to do with housing? If you're not convinced right now that there is a huge connection and how important and integral housing is to our thriving arts community and the success and involvement of your organization, then you surely are convinced now. And I'm just wondering if you have any last parting words before we begin to wrap up.
I think the only thing that I would like to do is say that we know that this takes time, but we don't need to delay. And I think we know what we need to do, and now we need to take action. And having watched our city grow over the years, I know that we can do it, but I think that we have to put our mind to it, our resources to it. And yes, it is going to cost us all. However, we need to make it happen, and we need to make it happen soon. Thank you.
I can't think of a better note to land on. Thank you, Zenetta, so much for joining us this morning and sharing your unique perspectives of how and why affordable housing is so important to the vibrancy of our civic life and our arts community. We wish you much success for the remainder of this year. And yes, if we can have you back, we definitely want you because this has been such a wide ranging conversation. And before we sign off today, I just want to remind all our viewers to follow Dallas Housing Coalition on all its socials for updates on how you can get involved in the work of the coalition and stay connected to future episodes like this one of the Housing for All webinar series. You can also visit the Dallas Housing Coalition website at dallashousingcoalition.com to learn more about the member organizations like Dallas Black Dance Theater Company and become a member if you aren't already. And also, if you are interested in supporting Forward Dallas, please make sure you check out the post that Dallas Housing Coalition has been putting out in all its housing on all its social media channels for a few suggestions about how you can provide support for the Forward Dallas plan. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Housing for All webinar series, where we discuss whether Dallas is big and if it is truly big enough for everyone. Thanks so much and see you next week.
Thank you.